Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Usually we take one topic, a book, a paper, and just, drill all the way down. But today we're looking at more of a map of the entire tech landscape as it stands right now in early 2026.
And it is a dense map. We're looking at a newsletter from Andrew Kagan, Technical News You Can Possibly Use, dated January 30, 2026.
I love that title. The possibly is doing a lot of work there. But honestly, reading through this, it feels less like news and more like a survival guide for the next year in computing. It hits 8 massive pillars: Azure, M365, Power Platform, DevOps, data and AI, security, all of them.
It's exhaustive. And usually when you see updates like this, they're all in their own silos. The Azure stuff is for the cloud people,
Yep.
the M365 stuff's for the admins. But the really fascinating thing here is how those walls are just completely collapsing.
That was my biggest takeaway, too. You can't just be an Azure person anymore because now you have AI agents on Azure authenticated by M365, built with DevOps tools that are changing under our feet. So our mission today is to connect those dots.
Exactly. We're going to try to weave these 8 pillars together to show you the bigger picture. Because there are terms in here, MemRel, vibe coding, post-quantum home servers, that sound like science fiction, but they're quickly becoming the new standard.
Okay, so let's start with the brain of the whole operation, the data, analytics, and AI pillar. There's a headline here that I think just defines where we are in 2026. The shift from standard LLMs to self-evolving agents, and specifically this idea of MemRel.
This is a huge deal. If you've been following AI for the last few years, you know the standard has been retrieval augmented generation.
Right, we know RAG. That's basically giving the AI a library card. You ask it something, it runs to the database, grabs a document, and gives you an answer based on that.
Exactly. And RAG is great because it grounds the AI in facts. It, stops the hallucinations. But RAG's limitation is that it's static. The model itself doesn't learn from the interaction. It just retrieves. If you have a complex 5-step problem and the AI messes up on step 3, doesn't remember that mistake next time. It's like working with a brilliant intern who has amnesia.
Enter MemRel.
MemRel changes the whole architecture. It stands for memory-based reinforcement learning. Instead of just looking up facts, the agent uses what's called episodic memory.
Episodic memory. Okay, that sounds inherently human. Like, I remember what I ate for breakfast, or I remember touching a hot stove. Not because it's in a database, but because I lived it.
That is the perfect analogy. Instead of just reading the textbook, which is RS-Ray, the model is actually learning from its own past experiences during the interaction. It creates a memory of the episode. The newsletter explicitly says that MemRel outperforms RAG on complex benchmarks without any fine-tuning.
And that's the key right there. Fine-tuning models, retraining them to be smarter is incredibly expensive and slow.
It's the bottleneck. If you have to stop and retrain the model every time you want it to learn a new trick, you're just too slow. MemRel allows the agent to self-evolve.
Yeah.
It gets smarter just by doing its job. We are moving from a search engine that talks to a digital employee that gains experience.
That is a massive distinction. But, for a smart employee, you have to give them good material to work with. Which brings us to another acronym in this section that sounded like a fitness supplement, GEST.
Yes. GEIST, greedy independent set thresholding.
I'm glad you said that, not me. But what's the actual problem it's solving?
It's the too much information problem. In 2026, we're drowning in data. If you try to train an AI on everything, it gets slow, it gets expensive, and it gets noisy. But if you just pick data at random, you might miss the one crucial email that explains everything.
So GS is like a smart filter.
It's a mathematical filter. It balances 2 things, diversity and utility. Diversity means don't show me 10 versions of the same spreadsheet. Utility means show me the one that actually had the final decision in it. It basically creates a curated playlist of data for the AI.
And the newsletter mentions it offers a mathematical guarantee about the quality.
Which is rare in AI. Usually AI is probabilistic, it's fuzzy. GST gives you a guarantee. It means you can trust the sample.
Okay, so we've got MemRel brains that learn, and GSD making sure they're fed the right data. But where does all this stuff run? My laptop fan spins up just opening a big spreadsheet. This needs some serious iron.
And that brings us to the industry news and Azure pillars, the hardware. The newsletter flags the Maya 200.
Microsoft's new custom silicon.
It is. But the key thing here is that it's an AI accelerator built specifically for inference.
Inference. Let's unpack that.
For the last 5 years, the chip war was all about building these huge models like GPT-4 or 5. That takes massive brute force compute. But now, in 2026, the models are mostly built. Now we need to run them. That's inference. Every time an agent answers your question, that's an inference workload. The Maya 200 is the engine room designed to run those workloads efficiently.
So we've gone from building the factory
To running the assembly line, exactly. And alongside the hardware, there's a critical Azure update about who is running the machine. It's called Technical AI Agent Foundations and Microsoft Entra Agent ID.
Entra Agent ID. That feels like a pivotal moment. We used to run scripts as a user or a service account. But Agent ID. The bot has a badge now.
Think about what that means. We use Entra ID, what used to be Azure AD, to manage human employees. You have an ID, I have an ID. It says what files we can see, what doors we can open. Now we are giving those same distinct IDs to software agents.
So we're not just treating them as tools anymore. We're treating them as non-human users.
Exactly. It means you can audit the agent. You can ask, what did the supply chain bot look at on Tuesday? It also means you can lock them out if they go rogue. You can't just have some nameless script with admin privileges running wild anymore. It needs an identity.
That leads perfectly into how we're building all this stuff. Let's shift to the DevOps, SRE, and Power Platform pillars. There is a term in the glossary of this newsletter that I am just obsessed with. Vibe coding.
I had a feeling you would latch onto that one.
It sounds like something you do with a lava lamp on. I'm just coding on vibes, man. But the definition is actually pretty compelling.
It is. It describes a development workflow that emphasizes experimentation and creative flow over meticulous structure.
So the human brings the vibe. The AI brings the code.
That's the dynamic. The human is the director. The AI is the cinematographer. You focus on the intent, what the app should feel like, what the experience should be, and the AI handles the syntax, the boilerplate, the semicolons.
It sounds like a dream for creativity. But there was a pretty big warning label attached to it in the source material.
A massive one. The source explicitly says it is not yet considered reliable for building serious, production-ready software.
Right. That's the reality check. Vibe coding is great for a prototype, for getting an idea from your head onto the screen, but you're not going to build the world's banking infrastructure on vibes alone.
No. Reliability still needs engineering. And that's why, right next to vibe coding, the newsletter also highlights WinApp, a new Windows app development CLI.
The command line interface, the total anti-vibe.
It shows that even as AI is rising, the hardcore developer tools, the terminal, the CLI are still being improved. We're not abandoning precision, we're just adding a layer of creativity on top.
And speaking of tools, GitHub Copilot has a new trick, bringing work context to your code.
This is a subtle but huge productivity shift. Before, coding assistants mostly looked at the file you had open, maybe the file next to it. This update implies the AI understands the broader context of your work. It knows the project you're on, maybe the Jira ticket you're trying to fix.
It's the difference between asking a stranger for directions and asking a colleague who's been on the project for 6 months.
That's a perfect way to put it. It brings that context to the code completion.
Now, I want to pivot to Power Platform because there's a headline here that I think every project manager has dreamed of. The death of manual docs.
A DevOps approach to Power Platform documentation.
Is it really dead? Is manual documentation gone? Can we celebrate?
In the Power Platform world, it's getting there. Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
A low-code platform is structured data. The platform knows what the app does because the app is just a set of rules in the platform's own logic. So why are we manually typing out this button sends an email? We should just be generating that documentation.
And that makes sure the docs actually match reality. That's always the problem. You write the docs, you change the code, and now the docs are a lie.
Exactly. If the documentation is generated from the solution itself, it's always true. It's a huge win for maintenance.
But we can't talk about Power Platform without the guardrails. There's an article here, breaking down the facts about secure development with Power Platform.
This is so crucial. We have citizen developers now, people with HR, finance, building apps. They're not security experts, but they're building tools that touch real company data. They need to understand things like Dataverse security roles.
Just because it's low code doesn't mean it's low risk.
Not at all. If anything, the risk is higher because the person building it doesn't know what SQL injection is. The security model of the platform becomes non-negotiable.
Which brings us to the scary part, or, well, the responsible part. Governance, security, and compliance. This is where the Microsoft 365 and security pillars really come in. We have agents with IDs, we have vibe coding. How do we stop this from turning into total chaos?
That is the question of 2026. And the answer, according to this newsletter, is Agent 365.
Agent 365, discoverable, governed, and secure agents.
Think of it like a corporate directory for bots. If everyone in your company starts building agents, you're going to get sprawl. You'll have 5 different agents all doing the same thing. Or worse, an agent nobody knows about that's accessing data it shouldn't.
So Agent 365 gives you visibility.
Visibility and control. It's the phone book and the police force all in one. But it goes deeper. The newsletter mentions the Evils for Agent Interop Starter Kit.
Agent interop. So testing how the agents talk to each other.
That's exactly what it is. And that's a frontier we haven't really dealt with yet. We know how to test a human chatting with a bot. But what happens when your inventory agent talks to your purchasing agent?
And they have a misunderstanding.
Right. Imagine the inventory agent says, we were running low on widgets. And the purchasing agent, who is maybe hallucinating a tiny bit, interprets low as critical emergency and orders 50,000 units instead of 500.
That is a very expensive hallucination.
Exactly. And because there was no human in the loop, you might not catch it until the truck shows up. This Interop Starter Kit is about testing those machine-to-machine conversations. We need to evaluate their communication skills just like we do with employees.
That's a headache I hadn't even considered. Machines gossiping and getting the facts wrong.
Hopefully we catch that in the evals phase.
And on the admin side, to manage all this, we're seeing tools like unified tenant configuration in M365.
The newsletter mentions new APIs in Microsoft Graph for this. It lets you do configuration as code. Instead of clicking through 1,000 web menus to set up your security policies, you just script it. You apply it to the whole tenant at once.
It's the only way to manage at scale. You can't click fast enough to govern 1,000 agents.
Exactly. But even with good management, there are still threats. We have to talk about the security pillar. There's a headline here. The hidden risks inside ChatGPT in Entra ID.
This loops right back to the identity discussion. If you integrate ChatGPT into your corporate identity system, you're creating a pathway.
A pathway for attackers. The glossary flagged a term here that I think is really relevant. Kerber roasting.
Love the name, hate the implication. For anyone listening who isn't a hacker, what is Kerber roasting?
Okay, so imagine you go to a concert, you show your ID, and get a wristband, a ticket, to get into the VIP area. Kerber roasting is like a thief stealing that wristband, taking it home, and then using a supercomputer to figure out the secret pattern on it so they can forge their own.
And once they forge it, they can walk into the VIP area whenever they want.
Precisely. In the tech world, that wristband is a service ticket. And here's the kicker. If an AI agent has an identity, it has a ticket. If that agent has a weak password or weak encryption, an attacker can Kerber roast the agent, crack its ticket, and then impersonate it.
So the hacker doesn't hack you, they hack the bot that you already trust.
Exactly. And that's why the newsletter talks about something called ICS Integrated Cloud Email Security.
Another acronym to the rescue.
ICS sits inside the cloud environment. Traditional email security was like a gatekeeper at the edge. But if an attacker compromises an agent inside your network, and that agent starts sending phishing emails to your employees, the gatekeeper won't see it. It's already inside the walls.
So ICS is the internal security guard.
It uses AI to scan internal traffic, API calls, emails. It's essential when you have agents sending messages too. You need security inside the house.
It really just highlights that security is a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. You plug one hole, the AI opens another.
Or the AI helps you plug them faster. That's the hope.
Let's look to the horizon. Section 4, the future. This is industry trends and learning, and this gets complicated. Building a serverless post-quantum matrix home server.
Just threw all the buzzwords in a blender, right?
Seriously, serverless post-quantum matrix. What are we actually talking about here?
It's actually very practical, believe it or not. Matrix is an open standard for secure, decentralized communication. Serverless is just efficient hosting. But post-quantum is the critical piece.
Why do we need post-quantum encryption on a home server in 2026? Are quantum computers breaking into my house?
Not yet. But there's a threat called harvest now, decrypt later.
That sounds ominous.
It is. It means bad actors, nation-states, mostly, are stealing encrypted data today. They can't read it yet. Our current encryption is too strong, but they're storing it. They're waiting for a quantum computer powerful enough to break that encryption, maybe in 5 years, maybe 10.
So the private conversation you have today could be unlocked and read in 2030.
Exactly. If you want your data to stay private forever, you need to use post-quantum encryption today. Seeing this in a newsletter about a home server signals that this tech is moving from the lab to the living room.
That is the definition of future-proofing. And speaking of which, Microsoft is opening the 2026 Quantum Pioneers program.
Which means they're looking for the workforce that can actually handle this shift. It's not just theoretical physics anymore. It's becoming an engineering discipline.
So if I'm listening to this and feeling a little overwhelmed, I've got vibe coding to try, agents to secure, and now I need to learn quantum mechanics. How do I keep up? The learning and certifications pillar in this newsletter is pretty robust.
It is. And the titles tell you exactly where the market's going. Learn Azure in 2026. Relational database design. But look at this one. Architecting agent solutions. Principles and patterns.
That's the new MBA.
It's the new systems architecture. We aren't just building apps anymore. We're architecting ecosystems where humans and agents coexist. You need to understand the patterns of how they talk, how they fail, and how they recover.
And even the old standards are evolving. I mean, look at SQL Server 2025.
REST APIs, vectors, and AI in SQL Server 2025.
SQL Server used to be rows and columns. Now it's everything.
Now it supports vectors, which is the math that powers AI search. It means your boring old customer database can now power a MemRel agent. If you're a database admin, you can't just know SQL anymore. You have to understand vectors.
It seems like the theme of this whole newsletter is just adaptation.
Absolutely. The tools are adapting, the threats are adapting, and the humans have to adapt faster than both.
So let's recap the journey we just took. We have Azure running Maya 200 chips for inference. We have MemRel agents that learn from episodic memory, fed by GI sample data. We have developers vibe coding prototypes while using Entra agent IDs to give these digital workers a real corporate identity.
And we've got the governance layer, Agent 365, trying to keep it all from falling apart, all while we're preparing for the post-quantum era.
It's a brave new world.
It is. And if I can just pose one last question to everyone listening.
Please.
We talked about MemRel agents that remember and evolve. We talked about Entra agent IDs, giving them a distinct identity and security clearance. So if our software now has a persistent identity, and it learns from experience without us writing a single new line of code, are we still developing software?
Sure.
Or are we effectively onboarding digital employees? Are we coders anymore, or are we becoming HR managers for robots?
That is a thought that is going to keep me up tonight. The shift from debugging code to conducting performance reviews for your agents.
The line is getting very, very blurry.
Well, while you mull that over, I suggest you check out the Learning and Certifications section of the newsletter because 2026 is moving fast, and you don't want to get left behind by your own agents.
Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.